Now, just like in nature, things eventually go extinct. In the automotive world, that's the case too. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, what I'm referring to is the big SUV. A lot of them are really gone by the wayside, with only a few still hanging around. One such notable being the Yukon behind me. Now, this year, 2015, they've done a revamp. This one being the 2015 GMC Yukon Denali. Now, we're going to take a quick look and look at the differences that they've brought to the table. Now, one thing the full-size market does is it doesn't make apologies because it really wants to take up the road, and the Yukon Denali for 2015 really is pushing the limits, the most notable being the exterior design. Now, one thing we noticed with the kind of the Yukon Suburbans is that they kind of morphed a little bit, had a little bit of sculpting going on in that early 2000s, and really started to add a little bit more sleek lines. Now here, as we transition to the previous model and this one, you see that we went back to the standard box-like shape, really squared off lines and really not kind of sculpting on the edges, because what happens when you sculpt, of course, you're losing interior volume, and they've really gone back to the basics here for 2015. Now, for this current model, it kind of draws a little bit from last year, really sticking still with that rectangular design, but adding a little bit more curve. Now, the biggest difference really being right up here with this headlight assembly that kind of sweeps over this front fender, a little bit of chisel here on the hood, and a kind of a different pillars as you sweep to the back rear end. Now, when you look at the overall numbers, you're looking at about 204 inches overall, with a wheelbase of about 116. Now, the biggest number you want to look at really is ground clearance, this one being about 8 inches. Now, it seems kind of nominal, but really when you look at the step-in height, that's the biggest difference, here being about 2 feet tall, meaning you're going to have kind of a running approach to get inside. Now, one thing I noticed with this particular model is they've actually fixed that with some nice step-out running boards. Now, I always talk about guerrilla warfare when it comes to full-size SUVs. Obviously, they take the cake. Now, here on the Denali, what I love is that full-size grille right front center with those kind of riveted-like holes, something you're always going to find on that Denali product. Now, as you sweep up, you're really going to notice this kind of new pronounced hood, a little bit more sculpting, a little bit more kind of pizzazz on the otherwise last year's model. That's pretty much straightforward, all smooth edges and straight lines. Now, I'm a big fan of minimizing chrome, but here on the Denali, that's not going to be the case. Now, where you're going to find it, of course, is on that huge grille up front and on the badging on the side. Now, sweeping around the rest of the vehicle, you're going to see a little bit of chrome accents, of course, on the step rails, here on the doors, and sweeping around the windows. Now, it's not really overkill. It doesn't look like a Mr. T-like starter kit, but it is just enough. Now, one area where you're going to find tons of chrome is on the wheels. Now, standard wheels are going to be 20-inch, with this one coming standard with the optional 22-inch version. Now, you sweep down the side of the Yukon, one thing you'll notice is this kind of rear pillars adorned in black, and what that does is allow this rear window to kind of look a little bit longer, giving a less squatty kind of appearance, considering this isn't that big of glass. Now, one thing I do love is this rear glass on this taillight assembly, kind of separating the Denali from the rest. Now, as you sweep around here, one thing you gotta think about on this Denali is really the innovations, and specifically the ease of access. Now, one thing they start with is, of course, the smart key system, allowing you to keep the key in your pocket and access this vehicle with ease. One way you do it is simply with a finger. Press here, and this rear tailgate is going to rise to the occasion. Now, once it opens, it's going to be typical 3-row like design with just a little bit of space back here. Now, we'll dive a little bit into this cargo in a second, but looking at the numbers, you got about 15 cubic feet of space back here. Now, it's typical and comparable to kind of a sedan, and it's going to be more of a vertical like area, allowing you to put a few items back here. Now, if you're a big grocery shopper, you're really going to need to kind of expand on this little area right here, and on this particular Denali, it's made quite easy with these power controls. You're going to simply press it here, and it's going to tumble forward. Now, a little hint, we've actually kind of lowered the headrest, allowing it to kind of fold with ease. One step you may have to do if these headrests are actually up. Now, with these rear seats folded down, you're going to kind of more than triple the area at about 52 cubic feet. Now, if you really want to, you can lay all the seating flat, allowing you to have about 94 cubic feet of space overall and really be able to handle any full-size items. Now, one thing you will notice about the rear cargo area is you kind of have this raised little portion now instead of the old traditional flat floor that just kind of is straightforward. Now, what this does is allow you to have kind of a little cargo box where you can hide items or just store permanent things that are going to be in the vehicle all the time. Now, open it up, it's going to be pretty much a straightforward kind of little box. You're going to put things in there. It's got a fairly gripped surface here, so it's not going to slide around and make a lot of noise. This is really great for items that are just going to be here all the time. Now, one thing it does do is take a few inches of space from the bottom, really minimizing what could be another cubic feet or 2 cubic feet of space if it wasn't here. Now, one thing you need to think about on power hatches is really the ability to kind of get them to go down with ease. Now, they do have a button here for you to press, allowing it to go down. You can adjust this height, you know, for the vertically challenged. Now, also another feature is really the key fob. Press the double click on here, and it's going to power down as well. Now, some vehicles locate this button instead of here. They actually put it back here, a little bit easier. Either way, I don't find any of the design here on the Denali to be cumbersome. There's just a lot of choices. Now, one other feature I like about this rear hatch, even though it is powered, you still can manually close it, something some of the powered ones out on the market won't allow you to do. They're just actually stiff and won't go down. This one actually will go down quite easily if you prefer to manually close it. Now, one thing we're looking at back here is really this pop glass. Now, this is something that's really fallen by the wayside, and a lot of vehicles can't come with this feature because they put that rear windshield wiper right here on the glass, really preventing it to have access. Now, what they've done here is actually design it up under this spoiler, allowing it to kind of drop down when it's in use. This allows this glass to really pop up. Now, this comes in really handy when you go to the grocery store, leave this hatch down, put your items here. It kind of creates like a dam effect, keeping the items from tumbling out if the rear hatch was fully open. Now, the old saying goes, more money, more problems, more size, more issues, the biggest being backing up. Now, if you're a novice at this, the great thing is they have sensors and a backup camera. Now, the sensors are kind of the next evolution, really kind of being ultra sensitive with that kind of coupled radar up front, really giving you kind of a gradation of how close you actually are to an item and a huge alert when you get really, really close. Now, as you sweep back here, you'll see the sensors, and one nice feature is this kind of rear covered assembly for the tow hitch. Now, this is nothing new. It's on a lot of vehicles, been here before, but they of course bring it back for 2015. Now, this is going to allow you to kind of conceal these guts that you're not going to need unless you're towing something. Otherwise, you're going to kind of hide it and make it look nice and seamless back here on the Yukon Denali. Now, under the hood of Denali, you don't expect anything to be less than huge. On this one, it's going to be the 6.2 liter V8 engine. It's going to deliver 420 horses and 460 foot-pounds of torque. Now, where that really delivers is at the back end, specifically towing capacity, giving you between 8,100 to 8,400 pounds of towing capacity, depending on how you equip it, whether in two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Now, one last thing to think of, even though this is huge and cumbersome backing up, it doesn't hurt to actually have sensors at the front, and they have that here as well. Now, where this comes in, of course, is maybe you don't have the best view down in front of you. Allows you to kind of squeeze in those niches, get up close to the garbage cans in the driveway, and really get within a pinned head of anything in front of you. Now, I'm starting at the back of the Yukon because this really is the only kind of limited area on this otherwise full-size SUV. Now, we talked about the headrest just a minute ago, really having them in their down position if you need to fold these seats forward, but really as you sit back here, you're going to kind of need to raise them back up. That's going to allow you to kind of have a nice seating area. Otherwise, that headrest is really right in the middle of your back. Now, once you get your seating, you're going to find leg room to be the most anemic back here, kind of to be expected. Now, one thing you'll notice is you kind of step up as you get to the back row. Now, what that's going to do is give you a little bit more elevated seating, let you have better view towards the front. But one thing you just can't fix is the fact that your knees are kind of bunched up against you. Your bottom is kind of low, your knees are up high. Now, by the legroom numbers, you're looking at about 24 inches back here in the third row, second row about 39, and up front, of course, the best at 45 inches. So what that means is the older people are up front and the little ones in the rear. Now, I always talk about airflow, especially in pickup trucks and the lack thereof, but really on a full-size SUV like this, you're going to have to provide it, and they really do well here with these ceiling vents. Now, this one is specific for the third row. You have two for the second row, and really your own controls there in the center console. That allows the backseat passengers really to feel as comfortable as the front, really dial in their comfort and airspeed. Now, as you get into the second row, this is really the true contrast from back to front, really with the second row being totally different with a lot of comfort with these captain's chairs. Now, depending on the Yukon you choose, you can have 3 people in the front, 3 in the middle, and 3 in the back, with this one kind of falling somewhere in between. Now, what I love about these captain chairs, they are truly comfortable, really plush, and with all this leg room, your knees are never really going to touch these seat backs. Now, we talked about climate just a second ago. That's all controlled right here in this kind of central hub, letting you control vent speed, temperature, and also connect all your entertainment-like connections, especially with this house-like plug over here on the left and a full typical car adapter here. Now, this is the hub for that, but the best part is right up above, and that is the DVD entertainment display. Now, you press this here, it's going to swing down and give you a huge screen, really entertaining everyone back here. The remote's kind of tucked up here, allows you to have ease of access. Now, there's 2 headsets that come with this. Of course, you can add more. Now, this is really makes the long trips that much more pleasurable. Now, on the Denali, you expect to have innovations, and you're going to find it right there front and center where the gauges are. Now, you have the huge tachometer on the left, huge speedometer on the right, but that digital display right there front and center is the key. Now, it has the implied gauges and that huge speedometer, but you can kind of adjust that to all the different modes you can think of, really giving you kind of up-to-date information as you go down the road. Now, this particular model did have the heads-up display, which does allow you to kind of keep your eyes on the road and see the reflection on the window. Now, I don't use that a lot. I typically like that huge display cluster there on the dash. Now, entertainment at the back is one thing, but you got to have it at the front, and at the forefront of it is the IntelliLink system, which is a huge 8-inch screen display right there front and center. Now, we've tested these out numerous times over the years, and each upgrade really is improving the usability of it. This one really making everything nice and simple right there at the home screen. Now, as you sweep down, you're going to find other simple uses, specifically the dual climate controls with a nice digital readout display for the temperature, ease of buttons, and this is still stereotypical for what we've seen on the other lineups. Now, down below, you're going to see the rear control. You can control here, and you're going to have nice heated and cool seats on both the front passenger and the driver. Now, in the back, you also have heated seats for a couple of them as well. Now, on the steering, you're going to find buttons for the cruise control, allowing you to set them with ease. You also have a heat button here, should you need it on those cool days. Now, one last feature is really kind of that gap control. Now, what that does is pretty much allow you to set the gap as you're going down the road. Now, this is going to kind of set that spacing between you and other vehicles, leaving it just a little bit or a lot. Now, that's great because as traffic builds, you don't want to kind of ride the brake. You want the vehicle to do all the work. Now, connectivity is the key to most vehicles, and they've got plenty of that here. Now, you got the 2 typical USB connections here with a power jack, and that's going to allow you to kind of hook up any of those devices and power them. Now, sweeping down, you're going to find the dual cup holders that are hidden, hide them away when you don't need them. Now, that should be enough, call it a day, but really they've done more. Now, in the center console, you're going to find more connectivity with 2 more USBs and even an SD reader. Now, that's to couple even with the entertainment system in the back, where you have even more connections as well. Now, the biggest amount of space you're going to find is right up front with, again, that about 45 inches of leg room. Now, really what you're going to notice too is that you are the captain, and this is your captain's seat. Plenty of bolstering and plenty of comfort. Now, these seats are powered here on the Denali, letting you have a lot of bolstering and moving with ease. Now, again, with that 39 inches there in the second row, you're not going to need to kind of give to those back passengers. Now, if you could actually take and grab this and throw it to the rear, that would be an added bonus. That does it for this edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2015 GMC Yukon Denali. Now, what we love about this vehicle is it really sticks with its roots, stays as a true full-size vehicle, and doesn't make any apologies for really taking up most of the road. Now, one thing it really keeps big on is the bottom dollar, with this one pricing out nearly $75,000. Big ones. Now, again, this is only a 2-wheel drive version, so you're going to have to pay a little more extra for the 4-wheel drive. Now, one thing to think of is that XL version, because obviously that's going to top out close to $100,000. Now, I'd like to thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior, and as always, keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.